Welcome to Talk to Al Jazeera. I'm Jacky Rowland, and we've come to Central Command in Tel Aviv to talk to the Israeli Defense Minister, Ehud Barak, just 2 weeks before Israel's due to get a new Prime Minister and potentially a new government. Ehud Barak, thank you very much for agreeing to talk to Al Jazeera. Now, on September the 17th, the Kadima party is going to choose a new leader and, by extension, a new Israeli Prime Minister. Who, in your opinion, is the man or the woman for the job?
Oh, there are 4 candidates. They are all good people in the midst of their careers. And it's, you know, their voters will choose among them. And it doesn't, we really don't bother about who will they elect. Whoever they will elect will be the head of Kadima.
And whoever they will elect, you would agree to work with that person in a new coalition government?
You know, to the best of my judgment, what is needed for Israel now is a wide, mainstream Zionist emergency government from the deep right into the deep left, including any Zionist party. I'm not sure whether it's possible because it's dependent upon the decision of a few political players, but it's up to them. I cannot predict what will happen if there is no unity government. Probably there will be an election, new general election in Israel.
Moving on now to the peace process with the Palestinians, do you think it's possible to achieve an outline agreement by the end of the year?
I hope, of course, any Israeli government, as a former prime minister and others, always feel the heavy responsibility to try whatever we can to settle the agreement, an agreement as long as it can keep the vital interests of Israel, especially security interests. I'm not sure whether the gaps are close enough. I can promise you that if there will be no agreement in 2008, it would not be the fault of the Israeli government. There is a heavy, silent majority in Israel which is ready to go as far as it takes to strike a deal with the neighbors, but always it takes tough decisions on both sides to reach peace.
But hang on a moment, you say that there is this wide consensus in Israel to do what's necessary, and yet Israel continues to expand the settlements. Almost every week we read of a new government tender to construct more housing units inside the settlements. Now, Condoleezza Rice, the Secretary of State, has herself said that expanding the settlements is not helpful towards the negotiation process. So why do you keep expanding them?
We are not expanding. We didn't say announce even a single new settlement. But there is a well-known dispute. We clearly believe that within Jerusalem we have the right to build as we need. And we have these settlement blocks, Ma'ale Adumim, Gush Etzion, Givat Ze'ev, Ariel, and several other small ones, where we believe that even according to the Bush letter to Sharon, we have the right to have them even within a permanent agreement.
So you believe, but Condoleezza Rice herself has said that continuing building, even within the existing settlements, is unhelpful. So why continue?
Yeah, we have the natural need of the population there. There are many people there, but I keep telling our Arab and Palestinian neighbors, the moment you will be ready to take the tough decisions on your behalf and strike a deal, there will be a border. And if anything that happens within the border, you know, if we now build in some area that will be under a mutually agreed borderline within Israel, why should you care about building it? If we build in certain area that under a mutually agreed line will be part of the Palestinian state, why should you care? You will ultimately get it. So basically it's clear to anyone that two-state solution is based upon setting a line within which we'll have a solid Jewish majority for generations to come, side by side with a Palestinian state that will be contiguous enough in order to enable a normal and respectable, dignified life for Palestinians.
Can we talk about that border now? I mean, do you believe that the separation barrier will in fact mark the eventual border between Israel and a future Palestinian state?
It's clearly our recommendation, so to speak, for how it should go. But once we sit down and agree on a border, if it will takes a different a delineation at certain sector, we will change the rebuilt defense in a way that will enable us to have a border, a secure, defended border within which we will have this solid Jewish majority for generations, as I've mentioned.
Now, a two-state solution envisages Jerusalem as being the capital both of a future Palestinian state as well as being the Israeli capital. Under final status negotiations, can you actually envisage a joint capital city, and how would that work in practice?
I don't think that we can solve it in a kind of a TV interview. Our basic position is that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, but that we can find a formula under which certain neighborhoods, heavily populated Arab neighborhoods, could become, in a peace agreement, part of the Palestinian capital, that of course will include also the neighboring villages around Jerusalem.
Now, there has been some controversy recently, remarks made by President Mahmoud Abbas in Beirut concerning the return of Palestinian refugees to what today is the state of Israel. Is there any movement at all in Israel's position on the question of the right of return of Palestinians?
I can see any Israeli prime minister, right or left, past or future, who will agree to accept even a single Palestinian refugee into Israel based on the right of return. That was my position when I was prime minister. It was the position of any other prime minister, from Rabin to Peres, from Shamir to Begin, and it will be the position of Israel in the future. It doesn't mean that certain humanitarian issues could not be solved here or there on a very limited scale, but no way to for Israel to accept a right of return for Palestinian refugees into Israel. Reason is that when at the same very years when when Israel by its very emergence caused the Palestinian refugee to appear, it was a war that was initiated by the Arabs after Israel accepted the partition plan of the UN of November 47. In spite of all difficulties, the Arab side, the Palestinian side, rejected it and opened a war. And you cannot get rewards for opening wars against international led decisions.
Moving now to Gaza. Israel is enforcing a blockade on Gaza. People can't get out easily. Only a bare minimum of basic goods get in. When is Israel going to lift this siege?
Look, I should remind you of the short or near past history of this. Sharon, out of all people, made this gallant U-turn toward the end of his active career, ordering the pulling out of the last soldier, last settler, destroying Israeli settlements, and pulling out from the last square inch of the Gaza Strip. Everyone in Israel expected that as a result of it, we will have a quiet, tranquil Gaza Strip. Probably there will be no ideal situation in the West Bank, but the Gaza Strip should be quiet. It ended up with Hamas taking over and rockets shelling continuing on our villages and cities.
But the blockade itself has not been effective in stopping the rocket fire. In fact, you've reached a ceasefire agreement. Meanwhile, the blockade in many ways is seen by many in the international community as counterproductive because Hamas still retains quite a high popularity among Palestinians. I mean, aren't you running the risk of creating a second de facto Palestinian state under Hamas in Gaza?
The Hamas basically reached the ceasefire because of the pressure of this siege on the passages and our counterattack, especially the targeted killing of rocket launching teams and other terror operatives. Basically, without this pressure, I don't see them coming to any ceasefire. And since then, we gradually opened the passages in a way that I believe is responding fully to our commitments in this ceasefire. The passages to Israel are now open.
The passages to Israel are open maybe for a person who manages to get an exit permit, but they're very hard to come by. And also in terms of goods coming into Gaza, UN workers in Gaza tell me that still it's a pitiful trickle of goods coming in. You say that the passages are open in name, but in practice people don't see any difference.
No, they are closed only in days where there is a rocket into Israel, so we close it for one day to see. But the absurd is once again the heads of the Hamas. You know, we found ourselves in a bizarre situation where the passages through which we pass goods into Gaza are bombarded or used to be bombarded by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, or other people. These are crazy people who want to punish their own people in order to show that Israel is ineffective in providing them what their basic needs. So I'm happy with these armistice. For the time being, it's going well. The only shortage is that until now, the smuggling of arms and weapons had not been stopped, and we expect from the Egyptians to find a way to stop it. And the negotiation about the abducted soldier Shalit had not yet been open, and we expect this to be open.
If we can come on to the question now of Gilad Shalit, I mean, he's just passed a third birthday in captivity, and over the past 2 years, while he's being held in Gaza, Israel has released hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, and yet Gilad Shalit is still a prisoner. What are you going to do to actually get this man out?
You know, we pushed these armistice, and we trying to push this negotiation in order to put an end to it. We have a commitment. I'm one of his commanders. I was not present here when he was abducted, but I think that we should take any proper and feasible step, be it negotiation or otherwise, in order to bring him back alive. And I think that Hamas will better find a way to live up to their commitments and start negotiations. Israel has patience, but not unlimited one. And there could be consequences to the inability to open negotiation regarding to Shalit.